The last session for Unit 2 focuses on the percussion and keyboard instruments. Percussion are some of the oldest instruments we know of. The way most percussion instruments produce sound is simple. Two items are struck together, or the instrument is made to vibrate. Percussion fall into three broad categories: idiophones, membranophones, and mallets. I discussed membranophones and idiophones in a previous session, but it is helpful to review it here. Idiophones are what I like to call self-contained percussion. They produce sound through the vibration of their own body. Maracas are a good example, as are crash cymbals, or cymbals that are clashed against one another. Membranophones are instruments that have membranes or skin stretched over them that is struck with a stick or mallet. Typical membranophones are the snare drum, bass drum, and timpani, or kettle drums. Many of the instruments I have mentioned do not produce a specific pitch. The one exception is the timpani. That is part of a group of instruments known as pitched percussion. Typically, the pitched percussion are referring to what we call the mallet instruments. Mallet instruments are often made of wood or metal and are usually struck with a yarn or plastic mallet. They include the vibraphone and the xylophone, among others. They are also known as keyboard percussion, but they are not to be confused with the keyboard instruments I will discuss in a moment. Electronic percussion instruments have proliferated over the past 30 years in the forms of electronic drum sets and beatboxes. These are not typically used in orchestral settings, but they play an important role in popular music. There are hundreds of percussion instruments, and more are invented all the time. So feel free to explore the boundless world of percussion on your own and through the text. Keyboard instruments can be found in the orchestra, but they are most often solo instruments. Because keyboard players can continuously produce multiple notes, one person can play all the parts it would take an entire orchestra of strings, woodwind, and brass to perform. Keyboard instruments generate sound when the player presses down keys. However, they do not fall into one category because they produce sounds in different ways. The piano is a percussion instrument because felt hammers strike strings inside the body of the instrument to produce sound. It is an extraordinarily versatile instrument that is used in many musical genres. Most people have heard the piano or played it. The pipe organ is an aerophone because it uses columns of air flowing through pitched pipes to create sound. Because one plays the organ with both the hands and the feet, and because it uses many different sounds known as stops, it is also a very versatile instrument. It has earned the nickname the king of instruments. The harpsichord plucks strings, so it is a chordophone. This was used in the 1600s and 1700s and has a unique timbre. The synthesizer is an electrophone because its sounds are produced electronically. This gives it a distinct advantage over other keyboard instruments. A well-programmed synthesizer can be made to sound like almost any other instrument. The sounds do not always replicate the warmth and nuance of its acoustic equivalent, but technology is rapidly improving in that area. The text goes into great detail about the construction and sound mechanisms of the keyboard instruments, so read it thoroughly and listen to the musical examples. If you have completed sessions 5 and 6, then you should be acquainted with the typical instruments in the orchestra along with percussion and keyboards. Knowing the instruments will deepen your understanding and appreciation of the music you listen to now and for a lifetime.